The day the Zithari arrived started like any other. The sun rose over Earth's cities, casting its golden light on bustling streets and quiet countrysides. People went about their routines, unaware of the storm that was about to break. But in the vast reaches of space, the Zithari fleet emerged from the darkness, a cold, calculating presence that blotted out the stars. At first, no one noticed. It wasn't until the first asteroid-sized object entered the solar system that anyone realized something was wrong. It moved with unnatural precision, faster than any known object that had ever traveled through space. When it entered Earth's orbit, satellites began to blink out, one by one. Communication across the globe became sporadic, and soon, the world was plunged into a sudden, disorienting silence. Then came the broadcast. A deep, guttural voice echoed through every human communication channel. It was as though the sound came from everywhere at once, vibrating through the very air itself. The words were clear and cold. "We are the Zithari. Your species is now under our dominion. Your world will be destroyed in one cycle. You will submit or perish." The message was repeated every few minutes, in every language humanity spoke. Governments scrambled to respond, but the terror was palpable. No one knew where to start, what to do. The Zithari had made it clear. They were not interested in negotiation. There was no room for diplomacy. To them, humans were nothing more than insects beneath their boot. Across the globe, the first waves of panic began to spread. People gathered in the streets, uncertain of what the future held. Stock markets plummeted, and airports became flooded with people trying to flee the inevitable. Governments tried to calm the masses, but the fear was too great. In moments, civilization itself seemed to teeter on the brink. Within hours, the first wave of Zithari warships appeared, descending into Earth's atmosphere with a blinding flash of light. They looked unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Sleek, angular ships, with jagged edges and glowing lights that pulsed like the heartbeat of a living creature. They were enormous, each one the size of a small city, and their weapons could vaporize entire buildings with a single blast. Humanity's defenses were inadequate at best. Space agencies launched what they could, but the sheer size and power of the alien ships left Earth's forces outmatched. The first attack came in the form of an electromagnetic pulse that knocked out power across the globe. Within minutes, millions were left in darkness, unable to communicate, unable to defend themselves. Then came the bombardment. Cities like New York, London, and Tokyo were targeted first. The Zithari didn't just fire missiles, they disintegrated entire blocks with focused beams of energy, reducing skyscrapers to rubble in seconds. People didn't have time to scream. Buildings crumbled, and the air filled with dust and smoke. In the chaos, something extraordinary began to happen. Human beings, in their sheer desperation, fought back in ways no one had ever expected. Survivors, fueled by adrenaline and the primal instinct to survive, rallied together. A sense of unity spread across Earth as nations, despite their differences, found themselves aligning for one purpose: to fight. Military forces, once scattered and divided, pulled together in the face of an enemy that had underestimated them. And while their technology was no match for the Zitharis, humanity's most dangerous weapon wasn't in their weapons, it was in their hearts. They didn't know how to defeat the aliens yet, but one thing was certain: they were not going down without a fight. The Zithari may have believed they would crush humanity within hours, but in the hearts of humans, the will to resist had only just begun to awaken. The world was in chaos, but amidst the destruction, there was a flicker of hope. The Zithari had underestimated humanity in a way they had never anticipated. They saw Earth's people as primitive, scattered, and divided, easy to conquer. What they didn't account for was humanity's ability to rally, adapt, and innovate in the face of overwhelming adversity. The global panic began to subside as Earth's leaders, once fragmented and at odds, quickly realized they had no choice but to work together. The United Nations became the core of Earth's resistance, and nations that had previously spent decades in conflict now stood side by side. In emergency meetings held in secret bunkers, the world's brightest minds began formulating plans for survival. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Within hours of the Zithari's arrival, a team of engineers in a remote military base made the first breakthrough. In a moment of desperation, they managed to redirect the power from satellite systems to create a temporary disruption in the Zithari's communications. It wasn't a victory, but it was enough. For the first time since the invasion began, the alien forces experienced a setback. It was a small, almost insignificant victory, but it spread like wildfire across Earth. News of the disruption reached every corner of the planet. People who had been cowering in fear suddenly found the strength to stand. Scientists, engineers, and military commanders from every country began sharing their knowledge, putting aside old grudges. The human race was united not just by necessity, but by the realization that this might be their only chance to survive. As the days passed, the world saw more successes. Humanity's resistance evolved from small, sporadic strikes into coordinated efforts. A secret team of hackers, working under the radar, managed to breach the Zithari's advanced systems, revealing critical weaknesses in their technology. The aliens, who had been so confident in their superiority, were stunned. They had not expected humans to fight back with anything other than fear and submission. Across Earth, the story was the same. Every setback the Zithari faced only made the human resolve stronger. Military units, once disbanded and fragmented, now launched counterattacks against the alien invaders, with weapons that weren't quite advanced enough. But with the will to win, they created chaos in the Zithari ranks. The tide was beginning to shift in humanity's favor, though the war was far from over. The Zithari ships, though superior in firepower, lacked the unpredictability and ingenuity that humanity had in abundance. In the shadows of Earth's cities, resistance groups formed, planning their next move. Some were skilled soldiers, others were just regular people with the determination to fight for their homes. In a meeting held deep underground, the world's leaders discussed their next course of action. They knew the clock was ticking. The Zithari had made it clear they would not wait long before launching a final devastating attack. Earth had no choice but to push forward. Military assets were pooled together, and Earth's space defense programs were revitalized, with nations working on repurposing old technologies in ways they never had before. A global effort to build weapons capable of countering the Zithari's superior firepower was underway, despite the limited resources and time. Humanity's heart had been tested, and in the face of certain destruction, they had risen. The fear that once paralyzed them was now a driving force. It wasn't the technology that made humanity dangerous. It was their refusal to be crushed. With each passing hour, the Zithari's confidence cracked just a little more. The alien invaders had expected an easy victory, but what they faced now was something they had never seen before. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were fighting back. And in the heart of this global rebellion, a spark of something bigger than victory was beginning to burn. The belief that Earth might just have a chance after all. The first major confrontation was nothing short of chaotic. After weeks of skirmishes, sabotage, and small victories, the Zithari launched a full-scale invasion on Earth's major cities. With their fleets looming overhead, they began deploying their ground forces. Alien soldiers with black armor and advanced weapons, unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They were relentless, unstoppable, and seemingly everywhere at once. But humanity had been preparing, and this time they were ready. Earth's militaries, now unified under a single command, made their stand. In a desperate bid to hold onto their planet, they deployed every resource available, what was left of their air forces, fleets of hastily retrofitted spaceships, and even untested experimental weapons. At the forefront of Earth's resistance were not just soldiers, but ordinary people. Civilians who had once been stuck in the helplessness of waiting now found themselves on the front lines. In cities around the world, from New York to Paris to Sydney, guerrilla warfare broke out. Using the terrain, the cover of buildings, and the element of surprise, humans struck at the alien invaders with fierce, tactical precision. One of the most unexpected weapons in their arsenal was the human mind itself. While the Zithari possessed far superior technology, humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and creative. Earth's engineers had modified old tanks, fighter jets, and even civilian drones to help fight back. They created traps, hacked the Zithari's communication systems, and planted explosives on the alien supply lines. The result was a series of hit-and-run tactics that kept the Zithari on edge, unable to predict where or when the next strike would come. In the midst of the chaos, a pivotal moment occurred when a group of human pilots, flying in poorly equipped but agile fighter jets, managed to breach the Zithari's orbital command ship. It was a long shot, but they succeeded in disabling part of the Zithari's shield network. The attack, though small, created a crack in their overwhelming superiority. For the first time since the invasion began, Earth's forces were able to inflict serious damage on the invaders. The Zithari were stunned. Their forces were spread thin, and their technology, for all its superiority, wasn't perfect. Their advanced shields could absorb most attacks, but they were vulnerable to human ingenuity, the very thing they had underestimated. The shock of losing a crucial command ship sent ripples through the Zithari ranks. They weren't just facing a primitive species, they were facing something they hadn't prepared for, the capacity for humans to surprise them at every turn. Across the world, the message spread. Humanity was fighting back. People who had been paralyzed by fear now felt a renewed sense of purpose. The resistance was no longer a fractured effort. It was a unified front, and they were making a difference. In the wake of this victory, however, came a new sense of urgency. While humanity celebrated, the Zithari were regrouping. Their retaliation was swift and brutal. New waves of alien ships arrived, and their ground forces began advancing with even greater force. The Zithari had learned from their previous mistakes. They would not underestimate humanity again. But this only fueled Earth's resolve. The victories, though small, proved a critical point. The Zithari were not invincible. They could be fought. They could be hurt. Humanity's defiance was the one thing that had truly unsettled the Zithari. They had believed themselves to be a superior force, and yet, in their overconfidence, they had sparked something greater, an unrelenting desire to survive that now burned in every human across the globe. The battle was far from over, and the road ahead was filled with uncertainty. But humanity had discovered something vital. They weren't powerless. They were fighters, and that, in itself, was enough to change the course of the war. As the Zithari pressed their advantage, the situation on Earth grew increasingly dire. Entire cities were reduced to rubble, and their relentless ground forces continued to make progress. Humanity's defenses, though impressive in their creativity and determination, were beginning to show signs of strain. The resources were running thin, and the war had already taken a heavy toll. The remaining human forces were stretched thin, fighting on every continent. However, in the darkest hours of the battle, a glimmer of hope appeared in the form of the secret project that had been underway for years, hidden deep within Earth's most secure research facilities. It was a weapon unlike anything humanity had ever seen, one that was designed with the singular purpose of countering the very technology the Zithari had used to conquer the stars. The weapon was based on a breakthrough in energy manipulation, discovered by a team of scientists who had long believed that conventional weapons would never be enough to defeat such an advanced species. The scientists had been working in the shadows, developing a new form of energy that could disrupt the Zithari's sophisticated shields and weapon systems. They called it the Pulse Core. The Pulse Core was still experimental and untested, but faced with imminent defeat, the leaders of Earth's military forces gave the green light to deploy it. They had nothing to lose. In a covert operation that spanned across multiple continents, a group of elite soldiers and engineers worked together to bring the Pulse Core into action. The device was massive, requiring several military installations to assemble it. Once completed, it was placed in a high-altitude military satellite that would allow the humans to focus its power directly on the Zithari fleet hovering above Earth. As the pulse core was activated, the first signs of its potential became clear. A low hum filled the air as energy built up in the device, and then, with an explosive burst of light, a wave of energy surged outward. For a split second, there was nothing but white brilliance. The Zithari fleet, sitting high above Earth, began to shimmer as the pulse struck. The alien ship's advanced shields, which had been impervious to all previous attempts to penetrate them, flickered and then collapsed entirely. The invaders' weapons, once the most feared in the galaxy, sputtered and failed. The pulse core's energy wasn't just a weapon, it was a game changer. The Zithari were no longer the dominant force in the sky. As their defenses crumbled, Earth's forces seized the opportunity. Fighter jets, repurposed military drones, and whatever remaining space-based weapons humanity had at their disposal were unleashed. They dove straight into the heart of the Zithari fleet, exploiting the weakness created by the pulse core. The tide was finally turning. The Zithari, shocked and disoriented, struggled to regroup, but their systems were in disarray. Their overwhelming technological superiority had been shattered in one blow. For the first time since the war began, the Zithari commanders found themselves in retreat. Their once unstoppable ships were now vulnerable. As the human forces closed in, the Zithari were forced to rely on their last-ditch tactics, but their advantage was gone. They had underestimated humanity's ability to innovate under pressure. And now, Earth had a weapon that could match their might. The pulse core was just the beginning. The Zithari were on the defensive, and Earth's forces were only just warming up. With the alien fleet in disarray, humanity now had an unprecedented opportunity to strike back harder than ever before. But Earth's leaders knew the war was far from won. The Zithari were a formidable enemy, and though they were wounded, they were far from beaten. But for the first time since the invasion began, humanity felt something they hadn't in months: hope. The hidden weapon had done what seemed impossible. It had leveled the playing field. And now, with their backs against the wall, humanity had one chance to push forward and take back their planet. The battle for Earth was entering a new phase, and the Zithari were no longer the only ones with the power to decide its outcome. The pulse core's success sent shockwaves through both Earth and the Zithari ranks. The sudden shift in power was like nothing either side had anticipated. For the Zithari, it was a crippling blow, a reminder that even the most advanced technology couldn't guarantee victory. For humanity, it was a breath of air after being submerged under an ocean of fear. But Earth's victory came with a price, and the war was far from over. The Zithari were not a species to back down easily. Though their fleet was reeling from the initial strike, their commanders quickly regrouped. The retreating ships weren't fleeing in defeat. They were repositioning, gathering the remnants of their power for a final push. The Zithari were preparing to strike back with everything they had. They would not accept being defeated by a lesser species. Earth had wounded their pride, and the price for that would be steep. Humanity's forces, emboldened by the recent success, began preparing for the inevitable retaliation. Military leaders worked tirelessly to fortify Earth's defenses, understanding that the Zithari would not allow such a powerful counterattack to go unanswered. The pulse core, though powerful, was only one weapon, and humanity knew that they couldn't rely on it alone. They needed to be ready for whatever came next. Days turned into weeks as the world rallied behind the cause. Earth's armies, though battered, were now united more than ever before. The global coalition had set aside old animosities and rivalries to form a united front. From the ashes of a crumbled world, a new humanity emerged, one that would no longer accept being the victim of intergalactic bullies. Despite their victories, Earth's forces were still outmatched in terms of sheer firepower. The Zithari ships were vast and formidable, capable of raining destruction on cities in mere moments. But the more the alien invaders attacked, the more humanity adapted. They learned, modified, and improved their strategies with every engagement. Where the Zithari relied on brute force and overwhelming strength, humanity used intelligence, adaptability, and a will to survive. The human ability to improvise was their greatest asset. In one of the most daring operations yet, a group of human engineers and military strategists devised a new plan: a targeted assault on the Zithari's command structure. They had discovered a weakness in the aliens' leadership network, a central hub that connected the entire fleet. If they could infiltrate it and disable the Zithari's communication and tactical coordination, they could strike a decisive blow. The mission was dangerous. It involved deep space infiltration, bypassing Zithari defenses, and planting explosives on the alien flagship. As the human strike team prepared for the mission, the tension was palpable. This was their best chance to take the fight to the heart of the Zithari, but it was a one-way trip for most of them. The team knew that they may never return. As they launched their assault, Earth's forces launched a simultaneous distraction on the surface, drawing attention away from the real objective. The strategy worked. The Zithari, stretched thin, focused their resources on defending Earth's remaining strongholds, unaware of the infiltrators making their way into the very core of their fleet. The strike team, equipped with the best technology humanity could muster, infiltrated the flagship. They planted their charges, and with moments to spare, they disabled the alien communications hub. The Zithari flagship erupted in a series of explosions that sent shockwaves through the fleet. With the command structure disabled, the Zithari were no longer able to coordinate effectively. Their once unified force splintered as chaos spread among their ships. This moment marked a turning point. The Zithari had been thrown off balance, and humanity had delivered a message they could no longer ignore. Earth's forces weren't just defending anymore. They were actively taking the fight to the enemy, striking where it hurt the most. The Zithari, once certain of their victory, now faced the reality that they were vulnerable, their operations fractured and in disarray. The war was changing. Humanity had proven that they could not only survive but push back, and now, with the Zithari fleet in turmoil, Earth's forces were ready to seize the moment. Victory was no longer a distant dream. It was within reach. The battle for Earth had taken on a new energy, and this time, the Zithari would have to reckon with the full might of humanity's resolve. With the Zithari command structure in disarray and their fleet scattered across space, the humans felt a surge of momentum that they hadn't experienced since the invasion began. Earth's military leaders saw an opening, a chance to strike at the heart of the alien threat before they could regroup. The Pulse Corps, now better understood and refined, was ready to be deployed again, and humanity had a new resolve, no longer just to survive, but to win. Earth's forces launched a series of coordinated strikes across multiple fronts, from Earth's surface to space. Humanity's fighters, now more experienced than ever before, engaged the Zithari fleet with confidence. The alien ships, although still formidable, were no longer the invincible machines they had once seemed. As Earth's forces took advantage of the Zithari's disorganized state, more of the alien ships fell, their once pristine hulls crumpling under the relentless assault of human ingenuity. In cities on the ground, the people of Earth fought tooth and nail to reclaim their homes. The Zithari had decimated urban centers, but humanity's determination to rebuild and defend was unwavering. Resistance groups, once limited to small, hidden cells, now mobilized in full force, staging counterattacks in cities like London, Sydney, and Johannesburg. What was once thought to be the last stand for humanity had evolved into a global fightback. No longer fragmented, humanity was unified by a single purpose: to push the invaders off their world. However, the Zithari were far from helpless. Though their communications were crippled, they still had highly advanced weapons, and their soldiers were unmatched in terms of physical strength and resilience. As humanity advanced, the Zithari began to adapt, coordinating their remaining forces in a last-ditch attempt to regain control. But their arrogance was their greatest weakness. They underestimated the relentless drive of Earth's people, who had been tested in the harshest ways and found to be far more resilient than their invaders ever imagined. The battle took a critical turn when a newly formed human task force, composed of elite soldiers and scientists, discovered a surprising way to combat the Zithari's overwhelming power. In a last-ditch effort to cripple the alien forces for good, the team worked to combine their remaining technologies with the pulse core. They found a way to generate a high-energy signal capable of disrupting the Zithari's bioelectric systems. This attack wasn't just a technological strike. It was a tactical move that used the Zithari's own physiology against them. The aliens, who had evolved to rely on complex neural networks for their technology, were highly vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses that interfered with their biological systems. With this knowledge in hand, Earth's forces launched a full-scale operation to release a series of electromagnetic waves designed to incapacitate the Zithari's bioelectric systems. This weapon, unlike anything Earth had used before, was their last hope to strike a final blow. As the human fleet deployed the new weapon, the electromagnetic waves surged through space, aimed directly at the Zithari's remaining strongholds. The effects were immediate and devastating. Zithari ships that had once been invulnerable to traditional weapons now flickered and shorted out, their systems failing under the pressure of the pulse. Alien soldiers, who had once fought with ruthless precision, faltered and collapsed, their advanced neural networks disrupted by the intense electromagnetic forces. In the wake of this attack, the Zithari's leadership crumbled completely. Their remaining commanders were no longer able to issue orders, and their forces were in disarray. The once proud alien invaders were now reeling, and humanity had seized the upper hand. But the war wasn't over yet. The Zithari, desperate and disorganized, began retreating, but not without launching one final act of vengeance. Their ships, now failing and fragmented, began a suicide mission to Earth's major cities, attempting to take as many humans with them as possible. Humanity's forces, though battered and bruised, were prepared for this final assault. The last battle was fierce, but it was clear that the Zithari had lost. The alien fleet was decimated, and their remaining soldiers were overwhelmed. With the Zithari forces shattered, Earth's leaders declared victory. The world, scared but unbroken, began the long process of rebuilding. It was not just a military victory. It was a testament to humanity's indomitable will. Earth had fought back from the brink of extinction, and the Zithari learned the hard way that humans were not so easily defeated. The war was over, and Earth had emerged victorious. Humanity had proven that, when faced with extinction, they would fight back. The Zithari had thought themselves the masters of the universe, but they had underestimated the strength of the human spirit. The silence that followed the fall of the Zithari fleet was deafening. Earth had won, but the cost was immense. Cities lay in ruins, entire populations had been displaced, and millions of lives had been lost in the struggle to reclaim the planet. Yet, amid the destruction, there was a deep, unspoken understanding that the true fight wasn't just for survival, it was for the very spirit of humanity itself. In the weeks following the victory, the world began the slow process of healing. Earth's leaders, now united more than ever, met in hastily assembled councils to address the immense challenges of rebuilding. The global military forces, though weary and fractured, were quickly restructured into peacekeeping units that could restore order in the wake of the alien invasion. Despite the chaos, there was a shared determination in every corner of the globe, a collective will to rebuild what had been lost and ensure that humanity's hard-won freedom would not be squandered. In the destroyed cities, survivors worked tirelessly to clear rubble, rebuild infrastructure, and reunite families. What had once been a fractured, divided world was now beginning to feel like a united front, as citizens of every nation came together to forge something greater from the ruins. While no one could erase the scars of the war, the human capacity for resilience was on full display. The scientific community, too, began to work in overdrive. With the defeat of the Zithari came the opportunity to study their technology. everything from their spacecraft to their weapons, to the very biology that had made them so formidable. Teams of researchers worked together to reverse engineer the advanced systems the Zitheri had once used to terrorize humanity. In many ways, Earth had gained a treasure trove of knowledge, not just about the alien invaders, but also about new scientific frontiers that were previously thought impossible. The exchange of ideas was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Humanity, in its most desperate moment, had learned and adapted in ways that would shape the future of the planet for generations. However, with every victory came a sobering realization. Earth had just been tested in a way that few civilizations ever were, and there was no guarantee that the Zitheri would be the last threat humanity would face. While the Zitheri had been repelled, they were not the only species in the universe. Other alien civilizations, potentially more dangerous or more cunning, might be watching from the shadows, waiting for their chance to strike. Earth, having just fought off one of the greatest invasions in history, would have to prepare for the possibility of future conflicts on an even grander scale. Despite this, there was hope. Humanity had discovered something profound throughout this conflict. They had the power to defend their world. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and unity had proven more than capable of overcoming the might of the Zitheri. The war had changed Earth forever, but it had also ignited a renewed sense of purpose among the people. With the alien invaders gone, humanity could now turn its attention to exploring the stars. Space programs that had been put on hold due to the war quickly regained momentum. New technologies, inspired by what had been salvaged from the wreckage of Zitheri ships, were fast-tracked. The world now understood the importance of standing ready for whatever lay beyond their solar system. Earth would no longer be an isolated planet, and its place in the cosmos had been forever altered. Humanity, now with a powerful new sense of self, looked up to the stars not with fear, but with confidence. They had faced extinction, fought back, and emerged victorious. The universe was vast, but for the first time in history, humanity stood ready to take its place among the stars, not as a fragile, helpless species, but as one that had earned its right to be there. The Zitheri had thought Earth would be an easy conquest. Instead, they had sparked the rise of a force stronger than they ever anticipated. A united, resilient humanity. As Earth rebuilt and looked to the future, one truth remained clear. No matter what came next, humanity was ready. As the final remnants of the Zitheri threat faded into the past, Earth stood at the threshold of a new era. The scars of war still marked the planet. Cities were still in ruins, and many lives had been lost. But there was a renewed sense of hope, of something greater taking shape. The human race had faced unimaginable odds, but in the end, they had triumphed. They had defended their home, their families, and their future. The reconstruction efforts were massive. What was once considered impossible was now becoming reality. Earth's cities were being rebuilt, new technologies were being integrated into daily life, and a global sense of unity began to flourish. The old divisions, whether political, cultural, or economic, seemed to matter less in the face of the greater challenges humanity had faced and overcome. People from all corners of the world, who had once stood apart from one another, now found common ground in their shared history and a collective vision for a peaceful future. The leadership of Earth, now formed into a single united body, worked alongside scientists, engineers, and military leaders to ensure the planet's security. The war had left them with valuable knowledge and technology, and they were determined not to let that advantage slip away. Space exploration, once an uncertain and distant dream, became a central focus. Earth's newly reformed space agencies quickly expanded their operations, preparing for the day when humanity would no longer just be looking up at the stars, but venturing into them. The technology salvaged from the Zitheri fleet had provided breakthroughs that opened new doors. Energy sources that had been previously unimaginable were now possible. Space travel, once limited to distant, slow-moving ships, became more efficient. The human race was now poised to explore new worlds, and this time, they would do so as a united force. But as humanity turned its gaze outward, They also knew the importance of never forgetting the lessons learned in the fires of war. The Zithari had underestimated humanity's will to survive, but that same strength that had led to victory also demanded responsibility. Earth's leaders were determined to ensure that no future invader could so easily take advantage of humanity's divided past. They forged new alliances with peaceful alien races they had encountered during the conflict, making sure Earth would not stand alone again. In the years following the war, Earth scientists worked hand in hand with these new allies to advance technologies for peaceful exploration and cooperation. The Zithari's violent presence in the galaxy had made one thing clear: humanity was not just a species to be overlooked. They had earned their place among the stars, and now they would help guide others to a future built on mutual respect, not conquest. Across the globe, human beings looked to the sky, not with fear, but with excitement and determination. The next chapter of humanity's story had begun, and this time, the universe would know they were ready for whatever came next. The war had changed everything, but in many ways, it had also revealed humanity's truest nature. It wasn't just about survival, it was about the power of unity, ingenuity, and an unyielding desire to build a better future. As the stars beckoned, and humanity took its first steps into the broader universe, one undeniable truth stood clear: Earth would never be the same again. The war had shaped the world in ways both profound and humbling, but it had also forged a future full of promise. For the first time in history, humanity stood as one, not just as survivors of a brutal conflict, but as explorers, innovators, and guardians of their world. The journey had just begun.